Oh, hi YouTube. Welcome back. As you can see, I got a new sign out of the closet. A friend of mine, he hooked me up with that sign, and I think he did a wonderful job. Can we look at the sign again? Oh, it's just beautiful. That's another piece of artwork by Zach Shea. And so today we're going to go back into The Most Difficult Chapters of Our Life by John Griffin. And today we have chapter 3, the GoFundMe page, part 1. It goes like this. Mary Jane sits on a bed in a little trailer, and it's cold as she listens to the rain pounding on the roof. The trailer's surrounded by mud on the old Blair ranch that was now owned by Thorne. He's a cattleman and well known for all the wrong reasons. He hires the down and out and oppresses them further as they watch the dead cows pile up. It eats at Mary Jane. She hates the ranch, and most of all, she hates Thorne. She looks around the room, and it is an utter chaos. There's not one bit of order that she can relate to. She reaches out and moves things looking for something. Finally, she finds what it is that she was looking for, her notebook. She takes a pen from her purse and she writes the date on the top of the page, 1/27/2019. Then she gets to work on what had taken her to this place in her life. When I was 8 years old, I was eating breakfast and getting ready to go to school when my mother looked up from her bowl of oatmeal and said, "If I knew that you were going to be a girl, I would have had an abortion. Girls are just so difficult, Mary Jane, and it is hard enough knowing that I am one." And she looked away, down into her bowl of oatmeal, and continued to eat. My mother had one other child. It was 11 months after she had given birth to me, and my little brother Gordon was born. He was her shining star, and she doted after him constantly. My grandmother, Emma, raised me for the most of my childhood, meaning she had me every day after school until someone would pick me up. She also had me every weekend, most holidays, and every family vacation. She was a true Jew, and she looked at me and said, "You're just not pretty enough to attend the festivals." And I would stick out my lip and pout and wait for the babysitter to show up. While I was attending kindergarten, the teacher approached my mother and said, "I think there's something wrong with Mary Jane. She's overly active, and I think she needs to see a doctor to be diagnosed for her condition." So she took me to my pediatrician, and the first man to ever call me fat. My little brain was being bombarded with negative thoughts, and my doctor thought about my condition, fat and hyper, and he came to the conclusion that the perfect drug for me was available, and it was called methamphetamine. It was the first time I was involved in drugs, and the fact that the doctor was instrumental in the initial phases of my drug addiction made it easier to go along with. Time flew by and I didn't realize what the drugs were doing to me. It had been 6 years since I got started, and the adults in my life were acting like my condition was the end of the world, and like with their help I was going to grow up and be Miss Tennessee or something. I was in the 5th grade and school was very easy for me. And one day, these people came to my class and they were there to teach me all about drugs. They gave us handouts so that we could read along as they wrote on the blackboard. One by one, they spoke of drugs that were bad for us. Then they came to methamphetamine, and it was sitting in a pill bottle from my pharmacist in my purse. I was told how bad it was and that no one should use speed. That's what they called it. I didn't know it was speed. It just made me feel normal. That was all I had known for all those years that I could remember. Most of my life before the meth was only a blur. I was only a child then, and still a child hooked on dope, who was sitting in a classroom trying to make sense of what society was putting me through. When I seen my mom later that day, I said, "Mom, they said I'm on drugs at school today. Who said this, Mary Jane? The people who came out to teach us about drug abuse. They said that methamphetamine is bad and people get addicted to it. My mom sat there on the couch, smoking her cigarettes, sipping a cup of coffee. Mary Jane, she said, warm this coffee up and bring me my phone book. And when you get done with the dishes, go ahead and mop the floor and vacuum the house. I felt like a maid, but I did what she told me to do. I got the phone book out and handed it to her. She started looking through it, and she circled a few numbers. They were physicians who specialized in pediatrics, the treatment of infants and children. Several days later, I'm seen by a new doctor. He looked me over, and from what he's able to find, he comes to the conclusion that methamphetamine was not necessary to treat a condition he was unable to diagnose. There was basically nothing wrong with me. I was a normal little girl, other than the methamphetamine. I was an athletic child, and I played sports to stay in shape and be beautiful. Mom always wanted me to be something that I wasn't, like a beauty queen that could open doors with a smile. Being something that I wasn't was my new normal. So I got off the drugs and pulled myself together for middle school. It was a time in my life when I wasn't influenced by substance, drugs. I enjoyed school and anything else that kept me away from my home. I just didn't want to be there. I knew what was waiting for me. Chores. Those endless chores and that space filled with empty gratitude. There was a void in my life where love and compassion should have been. I grew numb to it and worked through it. When I got into high school, my mother took me out shopping for a new bathing suit. She looked at my body and she decided that I would look a lot better if I had lost some weight. So she waited till my dad got home and she said, "Irvy." He looked up from the paper he was reading and said, "Yes, Eleanor?" My friend at the bank said that cocaine really helped her lose a ton of weight. I think it would be great if we could help Mary Jane tighten up her waistline. That way she'll look good in her bikini next summer. And Irvy, holding his newspaper and looking over the top of his glasses, said, "I'll see what I can do." My dad was a drug addict when I was growing up. I didn't realize it early on, but as I got older, it became more and more apparent. It was hard to believe that I was being raised by Irvy and Eleanor. They seemed too far gone to be real, but it was real enough. Irvy came home with the coke, and he gave me my first bindle. That was what he called the paper it was folded in, and he showed me how to chop it up and snort it. Meanwhile, Eleanor sits there on the couch saying, "It's not the drugs that are killing our kids, like they say it is. It's all the wars that are perpetuated by an establishment, the man, who is out of touch with the rest of society. That's what is killing them." The year was 1982, and I was hooked on cocaine as I finished up high school. The drugs helped me to lose weight, and despite what they would do to me, I was able to attend school and get good grades. But after graduation, I was in need of some help. I needed rehab. Irvy and Eleanor found a place in Wisconsin called Whispering Pines up in the mountains. I checked into the program high on coke, and I had it stashed in my luggage. I couldn't bear the thought of being without it. It was my peace of mind, and it made me feel stronger than I was. But it left me in denial, stole my spirit, and introduced me to depression. I was bouncing off the bottom hard, and I'd lost control over what I was doing to myself. I needed help. Over the next 6 weeks, I partook in all the therapy and threw myself at whatever activities were made available. I could feel the fog lift, and I began to clearly see for the first time in a long time. It felt good to know that the old me was still there, waiting to be found.